dynamically link project files like the way we can link Excel. Kaushal, can you explain further? I mean, I did not understand much actually. Oh, okay. So Kaushal has a good question, which is like, if we are running the project as different teams, like let's say I run the development team, and the development team is based offshore, and the other work is done by the customer themselves. They are all onshore. Kaushal probably is asking a question: can I just create development related tasks in my project and make them dependent on the previous tasks from other projects? Is that so? Perfect. So if that is the case, simply do not include the tasks that are not part of your project scope. Just remove them from here. Okay? You only have the tasks that are required and are part of your project scope. However, if you want to show which project you are dependent on or which project is dependent on you, then instead of having these tasks, we will connect our project activities to those projects. And we will also connect other projects, making them dependent on our project task. That we will do when we come to dependency topic. Okay? We'll discuss that. But yes, you can do that. You can dynamically link project tasks to other projects. Yeah? So your project dates can be identified using other project dates. Okay? Right. Have you all entered the durations? Everybody? So once again, Asavri, have you entered duration? Okay. Paudyan? Paudyan, I haven't heard much from you actually since morning. Bharat, done? Kaushal? Kaushal? Estimates entered? Pankaj? Prasad? Rakesh? And Pranali. Pranali, I guess you are making notes, yeah? So you will need to do it later on, offline, yeah? Okay, lovely. So, story so far, let me just do a quick about linking. Right, so project dependencies means what is required for a task to start, or what happens after this task, which tasks are dependent on this task. Dependencies in terms of tasks are like external dependencies. So for example, if I need something from a project supplier, like materials or people, then that is an external dependency. Mandatory dependencies are like I cannot start design until requirement is done or requirements are available. So mandatory dependencies are like what is really required to get this task started. We capture dependencies for every task. Now there might be few tasks which may not require anything for the task to begin. You have predecessors and you have successors. Predecessors means what is required for a task to get started, and successor means what happens after this task. The way we create dependencies in Microsoft is we go to the first task. Usually people do not create dependencies on summary task, although nothing stops you from doing that. You can create dependencies between summary tasks. For example, I can say design is dependent on analysis. If you create dependencies on summary tasks, which are like these top level tasks, it means if I create design is dependent on analysis, if you see, you will observe that analysis completes on 7th Monday, October. Where is that? Sorry, which is the one, this one. It starts on 7th, finishes on 11th. So design starts on 11th and completes on 18th or somewhere. What it means is, if you create dependencies on summary tasks, no task within design can begin until all tasks in analysis are complete. Which is like a waterfall style, wherein you have all summary tasks or phases completed, then the next phase begins. You can do it like this, but I am suggesting that let's prefer linking subtasks. Let's not connect summary tasks so that we can retain the flexibility. I mean, if you want to start design early, you can still do it, without having everything completed. So we leave summary tasks from here, but we'll connect all other tasks. How do we do that? Let's go to the first task. Ask your team, ask yourself, use checklists to find out what's required to begin collect requirements. Now it is possible that collect requirements needs nothing, or it's not dependent on anything. The day you say project gets started, you begin collect requirements, which means this predecessor column will remain blank for collect requirements. Then I go to the next one, which is draft requirements document. If draft requirements document is dependent on collect requirements, there are a couple of ways of creating linking. That is, every task has a unique ID like 2, 3, 4 and so on. It is created by Microsoft, and Microsoft keeps track of this. I will check what's the task ID for collect requirements. That's 2. So when I create dependencies, I can simply enter 2 here, and I've created a task dependency. So now draft requirements is dependent on collect requirements. So you see it has taken a shape. If you want, you can even create it using select tasks, go to the tasks menu bar and create the link. Same thing. You can even create it by double clicking on the task, go to predecessors column, and here you can drop down the list. I would use task information dialog when I have to create more than one dependencies. For example, if a certain task is dependent on more than one task, it's easy to create dependency here. Apart from that, if you want to change relationship like finish to start, start to start, start to finish and so on, you can give that as well here. You can even create leads and lags here. Lead means accelerate or overlap, and lag means pause, that is give a break. For example, if I want to overlap analysis and design, I can give lead, that is -1, -2 and so on. If I want to give a break between UAT and deployment due to some data migration or some other reason, I can give a positive break, that is lag. So few ways to create. One task can be dependent on more than one task. That is, for example, if this task is dependent on previous 2 tasks, you can enter each task's ID. But if these tasks are sequentially dependent, like draft requirements cannot start until collect requirements is finished, review with customer will only be done when draft requirements of document is done, and requirements will be signed off once it is reviewed by customer. As you see, you only need to give the ID of previous dependency. You don't need to give dependencies of all. I mean, requirement signed off is dependent on 4. So you give review with customer. Review with customer is dependent on draft. So you give that ID. So each one takes care of themselves. We don't need to give aggregate or cumulative dependencies. It's taken care of internally. Okay. Now this is like you can create your dependencies. If you want design specs to start after requirements are signed off, simply give the IDs. If database creation and design they can work together, you can give once again requirements to sign off. If both design specs and database needs to be completed for the milestone, and simply give a comma separated list. Okay, that means your dependency is created. If you see on the screen, like our project has started taking shape. We have the task that comes after one another to get a milestone. Then we have another task. This milestone will be achieved when previous two tasks are completed. In this manner, we will capture all dependencies. If design needs to be signed off for coding to begin, I just go and select 9. As I said, there are many ways. I can double click it and I can even select it from here, and it is done. If anything can be done in parallel, you can simply go and give lead or lag. Okay. Unit test cases and coding can begin together, so I can simply say they are both concurrent activities. You then have review, which will be done execution, which will be done only after 11 and 12 both are completed. So you can just simply start giving dependencies, and you can just create your dependencies on your project files. Sometimes it is possible that you might not see the corresponding activity on the Gantt chart. So you have to scroll on the right side. There are two scrollers, one for the tab and one for the Gantt chart. If you still can't see it, one easy way to spot them is like just click on the task. On the task menu bar, there is something called a scroll to task. If you click on scroll to tasks, you just jump it on there. Yeah. So you can create your dependencies like this. If all these activities are to be done in sequence, you can simply link them like it, and it is done. Yeah. So you can start creating your dependencies. Write test strategy. Do you think it is dependent on development, or do you think it can begin as soon as requirements are signed off? What's the right dependency between them? Is creating strategies and plans dependent on development signed off, or is it dependent on requirements signed off? What do you think? Let's see how it looks like. We have our dependencies captured. If you recall that the customer has expected that the project should start on coming Monday, that is 7th of October, and it should complete around Christmas. So we are just missing the Christmas date by a little much. However, we haven't yet thought about resources. We haven't yet created resources on our project. When we start assigning resources on our project, chances are either the project goes beyond this date, or it can even come forward, depending upon do you have enough resources in hand, and whether they are even available. Now, this typical thing about resources is they are not available, right? I mean, there is always one developer, one tester, and so on. You are always kind of running low on resource bandwidth. Apart from that, people who are available, they also have their own availability plans, like they are shared between multiple projects. They also do operations work. They might have their own leave plans and all. When you put all this information, this date starts taking shape. So far we created the project scope, then we gave project estimates, that is the task estimates, then Microsoft identified our task start and finish date using the relationship that we created. Remember once again, we enter the scope, we enter the estimates, we enter the dependencies. Microsoft calculates start and finish based on that. It uses the project start or project finish date. It uses the efforts and it uses the dependencies to determine what is the start date of project and what is the finish date of project. Same goes for each phase. When is each phase starting and finishing? And then same goes for each task within a phase. When it starts and when it completes. Okay? Right. Now, okay, so there are a couple of questions we haven't yet discussed, so I keep that point parked. Yeah, we'll come to that point and we will discuss. So we move from left to right to enter our project information. Before we start entering resources, let's see what's our critical path. Yeah, critical path is any path that decides the duration of your project. So there could be multiple tasks on your project. Each task will have a duration. Tasks will have dependencies. The dependencies, tasks and their duration decides which path will decide project duration. Let me show you one simple example here. Let's do this. This is my task 1. This is my task 2. And this is my task 3. Task 3 is dependent on task 1 and task 2. 1 will take 5 days, 2 will take 3 days, and this is the milestone. If this is what it is, how do you define how long will the project take? Depending upon project start date, as you see here, to achieve the milestone, as soon as the project starts, there are only 2 tasks. First task takes 5 days, the second task takes 3 days. There is no dependencies amongst them. The critical path is task T1 because that decides the milestone, that decides the fate of when the project gets completed. If it is running late, the milestone will get delayed. You have 2 days buffer, also called as float in project management, on task T2. When you want to see the critical path in Microsoft, on the format menu bar, you have critical tasks. And you click on them, it shows you the critical path of your project. Are you able to see? Well, okay, I think I need to format mine, but were you able to see critical path on your project? Was it shown in red or it's not shown in red? How is it shown on your project, the critical path? So yours is shown in red, is it, Asavari? What about others? Not shown in Gantt. Right, so yours also is not shown in Gantt. Mine also is not shown in Gantt. Right, network diagram does show it, but we need to format this critical task. We will see how to do that. Yeah, we will talk about that as part of formatting. Yeah, we will format our critical path. Okay, right. So we will also do the formatting, labeling of each task. We will assign people to them. Yeah. Sorry, what? Right. So Prasad, you are saying it's not shown on Gantt chart. You are saying that it is shown on network diagram. Yes, got it. What we will do is we will be formatting this to show critical path on our project schedule. Okay. We'll do that using something here. Okay. But let's assign people and then properly format the right side. Okay. So Are you all done with this? Then we can move to resources. We can assign resources and then we can format this whole thing. Okay, the critical tasks and all that. Okay, so let's go back to our project. Yes, initials column, Bharat, you can just ignore. If you want initials, you can use it. For example, my name is Ashish Dhoke, so you can use AD as an initial. You can basically the initials can be used for displaying it on the Gantt chart. Yeah, sometimes resource name can take very long characters. If you want to save some space, you can give initials or you can give some kind of nicknames. Okay, right. Now I'm back on Gantt chart. What we have done is we created tasks, then we created resources. It's time now to assign resources to the tasks. When you create resources, there are a couple of options. Number one, you can create all your project resources within the same project file, just like we did. The other option is if your resources come from different projects, then instead of creating them in your project file every time, you might create a resource pool and use resources from the resource pool. That way over allocation of resources can be avoided and some central management can be done for controlling resource assignments. Okay, but because that is out of scope, we are discussing resources within your project file. So once we create them on the resource sheet, we come back on the Gantt chart. It's time to assign people to the tasks. Usually, summary tasks and milestones are left out. Subtasks are selected and you can assign resources. How you do that? You keep the menu bar open for resource. So click resource, keep the Gantt chart open, go to the first activity, and then there are a couple of ways for assigning people. Number one, you can just drop down and you can select the role or name, whatever you have provided. If you see, two things have been auto calculated for you. Let me show this once again. I haven't assigned resource. What I have got for each task is the duration, that is 5 days. Efforts are not yet calculated. Cost is not yet calculated, but dates are calculated. Okay. I'll also remove successor now because I don't need it anymore. I see the dependencies. Now if I assign a person here, let's say business analyst, you will see that efforts are now calculated and cost is also calculated. What Microsoft does is it goes and checks how long this person is available. Then it also checks the cost of the person and then it assigns resource and calculates efforts and cost. When assigning a resource and calculating these dates, Microsoft uses availability of the business analyst. So if the business analyst is available between these dates, it's shown. If business analyst is on a holiday, these dates can change. So it uses resource availability to identify the dates. It uses resource unit rate to calculate the cost. It uses amount of hours the resource is spending to calculate the efforts. Okay. Now you can assign people either from here or you can double click here and you can assign them from here. One of the things you can achieve by assigning them from here is if somebody is going to work part-time on something, you can just simply say the resource is going to spend 2 hours on this, 4 hours on this or whatever. There are many ways to assign resources, like you can use this dialog box, or you can use resource pool, or you have many other ways. We need to basically use either this for now or just double click for now. Okay. If you want to use part-time, you can double click and give units, although you can achieve that as well. Okay. So let me just assign draft requirements document to business analyst. Double click, go back here, down, drop down 100%, and it's working full time. You want to assign him here, you can have once again the same choices and you are done. So you assign people, you can leave milestone out or you can assign it to project manager. It's your choice. But milestones have zero duration and it will not end up creating efforts for anybody. Now I just saw a question from I think from Rakesh. It's about if I assign person, how work is getting calculated. There is a formula in Microsoft and the formula is like this: work equal to duration into units. What it does is it uses the duration that you gave, in this case 5 days, and the amount of time a resource is going to spend. So 8 hours. So 5 days into 8 hours equal to 40 hours. If you assign 2 people, that means 5 days multiplied by 16, then it will calculate efforts equal to 16,580. Yeah, that's how it is calculated. The efforts are like how much time person is going to spend on it. Duration is like how many days it will take on a calendar. Yeah. Now you can just assign people now. Just assign people you think are relevant to this work. I mean, I'm just assigning like whoever is relevant to this activity. Can you please do it on your schedule? So please assign your resources. Yeah, very less explored because a lot of people don't know how to do that. Now when I go to my customer and my manager, I need to show them uh, about my project. So how do I show it to them about what my project is? What I do is I go to resource. Let's explore this view. Team Planner. When I click on Team Planner, it shows me what each person is doing month-wise. So I can see all my month-wise who's doing what. A typical question resource managers will be interested in. Who is doing what? So you can see from Team Planner. Apart from that, you can also go to something called as resource usage. If you go to resource usage, you will see all resource names here. Just collapse all of them. What you can do is you can add a column here for start. You can add another column for finish. You can add another column for cost. So what I have done is I've got cost, I got efforts, I got start, and I got finish date. What it means is when I request for resources, I can tell I need the business analyst for 10 days during the project, and between 14th of October till 25th of October. The total expenses on this resource is going to be £3,000. On this side, so this is your tabular format. On the right side, you can show some other information. Right side shows micro level information on how each resource is spending their time on the project. Like one day, and then it just keeps showing how people are spending their time. Now this is too micro level for people who are going to provide direction and control. What we can do is, we can zoom this out. How to zoom this out? Go to view. The time scale currently is on a day by day basis. You can say show me by months. If you say show me by months, now you can see in October I want business analyst for 10 days. I want technical architect for 4 days. I want DBA for 3 days. Then I need 30 days effort of developers. In December again 12 days. How many testers I want? How many days support people are required? You can use this information to request people. You right click, and instead you want to see cost. You can see how you are paying for each resource during each month. So if you are running a contract project, it shows you how you are going to incur expenses on your resources. Yeah, if you have used material cost resources, that is also shown. So you can see the breakup of cost per month. You can even see remaining availability of people. That means if somebody has been assigned to your project full time, you can see how much time they are available to do some other work like operations or other project work. Yeah. So you can just simply change all this. You can simply change, right click, change the data, and you see some more information about the resource. Yeah. Another one that I really like to see is, if you go back to Gantt chart again, there is something called as timeline. You click on timeline, you see a project high level view. Now what you can do is, all your project milestone you can add to the timelines. Let's just see. I will go to once again highlight, which is in view. Instead of critical, I will say show me milestones. So all my milestones are now highlighted. Click on each milestone. On the general tab, there is a checkbox, display on timeline. For all milestone, go double click and say display on timeline. Display on timeline. Display on timeline. And then display on timeline. Okay. Now if you see your timeline view, it shows you like if you see your timeline view, you want to remove this, you can remove it. Okay. I can see my project is starting on 14th of October. My requirements are getting signed off here. If it it is not coming properly, you can show it like this: requirement getting signed off here, design getting signed off here, then you have development sign off, testing sign off, and go live. It's like your project milestone chart. Yeah, you can even design this the way you want it. If you don't want to see Gantt chart along with this, you can remove Gantt chart from here and you can only see your project's timeline. Yeah, so you can just remove Gantt chart from here. Okay, you want to try this information? Can you just create timeline for milestones? See how resources are being utilized on your project. Yeah, so 2 activities I want you to do. Create project timeline using timeline view and add milestones. Go to resource usage and view information for each resource, which is start, finish, work, cost, duration, and how many days per month. So 2 activities, please. Save the baseline. Go to project, go to set baseline, set baseline. Microsoft supports up to 10 baselines. The current baseline should be always in the baseline fields. All increments should be saved in the incremental numbers, that is in baseline 1, 2, 3, 4 and so on. If I say OK, that means these values have been baseline frozen and we can then compare them. Yeah, okay. How to see the baseline values? You can simply go to view, you can change tables, so you can select tables, and in tables you can see more tables. You have a table called as baseline. When you apply, you should see information here. If this information is not present, it will mean you have not saved baseline. If you have not saved it, then please don't change any values. Yeah. If you need to change baseline or revise baseline, do it only when scope changes and the scope change has been approved by your customer. However, when you save new baselines, most people make a mistake. What they do is, they will go select baseline and say OK. It means that you are overwriting your previous baseline. If you do that, you will not have access to your original data. Ideally, we should preserve all changes made to the project so that when we do the closure review, we can track what was the status, what was the original plan, then what change came, how it impacted the project, then which change came. So you should have all the history. How do you retain all baselines? Before you make a change, what you do is, you should save your current baseline into next number available. The reason to do this workaround, Microsoft only uses information within baseline. Whatever is there in baseline will be used for comparisons. For example, I assign work to Pankaj and we have agreed 10 days. Then I come and I say, well, okay, I need some extra work to be done, and that takes another 10 days. Now, original baseline was 10 days. The revised effort is now 20 days. Instead of overwriting 10 days, I should move baseline into baseline 1 and then save 20 days in the baseline field. If tomorrow further change comes up, same thing. Move whatever there is in baseline to the next increment available and make current changes in the baseline. The reason behind that is the formulas, the reports, the variance calculation, it all uses baseline as the lookup table. Yeah, so you got to go and check, make sure that you use baselines only. This is how you do it. Customer comes, says instead of October 14, could you please start on the previous week? Well, okay, I go back. What do? I go to set interim plan. I need to move my baseline to my baseline 1 and I say okay. So now original value is retained. Now I need to make a change. I go to project information. My date changes from 14th to 7th and I say make a change. Now I need to create a new baseline. This time I simply go select baseline and overwrite it. But I know I have already taken a backup in baseline 1 and just overwrite this. So your baseline start is this. But if you insert a column and if you want to see the original one, the previous one, you can simply look at this baseline start. Yeah, baseline 1 start. For example, this. You will see the differences. Yeah, you can have all such differences shown on your project. You want to give it a try, please?